The Wakespeed app here, and the engine is off, so you will not see the device because, well, it is not powered on until the engine is turned on. So I'm going to turn on the engine for the chassis. Okay, the engine is on. Okay, now you'll see that it'll show up in here. We'll select, I've got the WS500 Pro. I'm going to go to configure. I'll go to monitor and show you that it is now showing the RPM, and it is correct. It is spot on with the right RPM, and it matches what my tachometer says on the Mercedes. So that looks good, and you'll see over in the alternator block that it is not charging yet. So after about 30 seconds, it will kick in, and it just kicked in. So now you will see that the drive is right around 10%, and that's exactly what I have it set up as in the configuration. So I'll walk you through the configuration real quick, but I'll also supply the file if you so desire to have it. So in configuration for alternator, oh, this is not it, sorry, let me load this. Open configuration, I had saved it here. Open. Okay, so this is my configuration. We've got nations for the brand, and model is 280 XP series. Very important, alternator capacity needs to be 280 amps. Moving right along, all of these settings look good. We are sensing the RPMs via the stator wire, so that is important to be on. There is not great information out there right now as far as the number of poles that we should be configuring this as. So I did a bit of trial and error. I had it at 17, which is what was provided to me, but that was not right. I went to 12 thanks to ChatGPT. It told me it thought it was 12, but there was no definitive answer. The RPMs that were showing in the monitor were not matching what was on the tachometer on the Mercedes. So I went to 16 after a little bit more research, and that seems to match perfectly with what's on the tachometer as far as what's showing in the monitor. The alternator to motor ratio is good. I did disable the use RPMs to select half power mode, because theoretically, if we're using white space for the shaping of the charge, we should never need half power mode. So the way it was before, it was really just charging at 50% of what was set, and the white spacing was not even working properly for many reasons, mainly because of the alternator poles not being close enough for it to detect it properly and use the white space shaping. Moving on to battery, I've got 3 in my rig, so I chose Battleborn and BBGC3, so Battleborn Game Changer 3, and everything else looks good here. Moving on to system, I did enable wireless communication on mine. That's not a necessity, and you can set a pin to whatever you want to on that. It just needs to match what you had set on the Wakespeed whenever you saw it. Now I'm connected via Bluetooth on the Wakespeed WS500 Pro, but if you're using the WS500, then you will not be able to connect via Bluetooth. You'd have to be connected via USB and Android device only, not iOS. So there's a few things that did change in here significantly from my previous config, and it was really causing quite a bit of confusion on what the source of truth was for the battery monitoring. So I do have the Wakespeed connected via RJ45 crossover cable that is pinned correctly to go to the Servo GX. However, this configuration was quite wrong for that, so the recommendation is really to not even do that and to rely on the smart shunt as the source for the state of charge on the servo. We'll get back to that in just a minute. But require a battery current sensor is disabled, and require a CAN connected BMS is disabled. This is to not confuse the CAN system with the wrong information coming from Wakespeed, because basically by default the Wakespeed tries to be the source for the battery monitoring, and we don't want that in this situation. Moving right along, don't think anything else in this section changed. Moving along down to the bottom area, quite a bit changed here. One important one was to disable the allow regulator to act as battery master. Again, this is back to what I was speaking of just a few minutes ago. And then we also want to ignore remote CAN-based battery capacitor data. Another important setting is the enable alternative CAN/BMS, that's battery management system protocol. This is a drop down, and before I had the Victron Smart Shunt requires SOBO option selected. However, what that does, this is a very confusing setting, but according to the manual, moving to standard only, it says, hey, I want the Wakespeed to operate in a standalone mode. I do not want it to get information from the BMS or the CAN system. Okay, so this basically disables its awareness from anything on the CAN bus from the battery management system that's there. All right, so that is set to standard only, and that was really one of the critical pieces, as well as some of the other things that I'm highlighting. Quite a bit had to be jiggled to get all this working just right. Engine, this is where I changed the white space shaping here, and best practices are to make sure that the curve here is smooth, that you have no quick jolts between the different ranges of RPM. So in my previous setting, this was all really being ignored before anyway, because the half power mode was kicking in and the alternator poles was not correct, so it wasn't even reading, it wasn't even able to do the shaping. Now it's doing the shaping just absolutely beautifully, and I'll show you that in just a minute. I'm still at idle, by the way, so I will go back to the monitor and show you what's happening shortly. All right, so this is the profile I'm going with right now, and it ensures that the low idle, I bumped up the 0 to 600 because that is not a normal resting idle for the van. It usually rests around 850 or so, exactly what you were seeing on the monitor before, unless you like have your air conditioning running or something like that, that will cause the RPM to go up to about 950, just under 1,000. So I went with a higher percentage. I may be tweaking this over time because I kind of want to see where that sweet spot is, where you could get enough charge, but not to kick in the low idle situation, which we're all trying to avoid. Okay, that's it for that. And DCC, we just have that disabled. The mode is disabled here, so don't have to worry about that. So once you get the configuration set in here, you would just want to write this or configure the device. Mine's already configured, so you'll see that the confirmed device is grayed out. If it is not grayed out, that means that you may have configured it, but it's not confirmed, so it's not going to air quote stick there. So you need to make sure that you confirm device anytime that you write updates to this. Now you can save this in your Wakespeed app here, and it will keep it, and you can name it something that you would like. I happen to name it this way and put a date stamp on the end of it, so I'll know when I did it, and you can just click save and it will remember this. All right, so that is what I have loaded in there. Let's switch over to the Smart Shunt and let's look and see what it says. So I'm currently idling, and you'll see that it is charging, and it is at 1150 roughly watts of power that is being used to charge this. Now that number may vary slightly for you because it depends on what load you have on your system. So I'm going to go over to my VRM here and show you what kind of load I've got on my system. It'll take it a second to load up. But you can see right now I've got an AC load of 167, 170, and I've got a DC load negative. That's really the charge right there. So it's really the difference between that 1326 or 1330 and the 170 there, right? So if we come back over, the wattage that we see on the smart shunt, and I'm connected via Bluetooth here, so every time I switch back over it has to come back. It is at 1180, so that is roughly the difference between those two numbers. That is what expected. Now you may be questioning, why do I show 100% state of charge when my voltage is at 13.63? Fully charged should be 14.2 around that point, or 14.19 or 14.18, somewhere right along there should be 100%. When I was swapping out my Wakespeed WS500 for my WS500 PRO, I accidentally disconnected the VE direct cable that came from the smart shunt to the Servo GX. So that had me chasing my tail quite a bit, and I had to plug that back in and reconfigure some things on the Servo in order to get it to see it. So long story short, I had to go into settings here for the battery and synchronize just to get it showing up again on my Servo. So over time this will correct itself, and due to my settings here, it will clear the current state of charge when it gets fully charged up to 14.2 volts per my settings here. So kind of ignore that for now, but let's look at this screen while I rev up. You guys know how hard it is to control the revving of the accelerator pedal here, but I'm going to try to go up as smoothly as possible. So I'm going up now, and I am approaching 900 or so. You should see a slight difference in the power. I'm going to go just barely over 1,000 RPMs here, so I'm sitting right around 1250 to 1300, and you see that the power now has moved to 1960. So if we go back to our shaping, that is really what we would expect. It's about 35%. So I'm going to go up now to about 1800, between 1800 and 2000 RPMs if I can hold it there. And you see now it's up to 2492 watts. I'm gonna go up a little bit higher, go to 2500, almost 2750 right now, and we're up to almost full charge there. And I'm up to about 3000 now. So yes, now I just went back to idle, and notice when it drops down, it does not drop immediately down to that 1100, 1200 range. It smoothly drops down. So that's what's really important about the shaping over here. If we look into this, you don't want it to be drastic changes. So using that half power mode to control it, bad idea. Over time, that's going to wreak havoc on that alternator, and also put undue stress on the belt for it, as well as the tensioner. So ensuring a smooth shape here in your charge here for the different RPM ranges is, in my opinion, critical for the long-term success of your system. Okay, so I hope that has been helpful. I'm going to switch over now to the Servo here, and I'll show you a couple of things that I had to do over here. I may be missing a few details, but I'm gonna have it on a small screen here because I don't think I can flip it during the recording here to a landscape. Otherwise it'll be sideways for you. So I'm gonna go into settings here, and you'll notice that in devices you'll see my NV Smart Shunt, which is my Smart Shunt. So we ensure that it's there, and then if we go into, I believe it's system setup, And batteries, right here for the battery monitor, you may have automatic. So if you do any swapping out or reconfiguration of this and you have it on automatic, anything that can interrupt the CAN system and not explicitly set the smart shunt as your source for the battery monitor, you may see things that I saw and it won't show up. So what they recommend is that you go in here and you explicitly set the smart shunt to be your battery monitor. So that ensures that your battery monitor settings back on your overview are correct and indeed coming from the smart shunt. That was the biggest one. Another one, if you do have your Wakespeed connected via the crossover cable to servo, it's not offering a whole lot of benefit for you right now. As you can see, I do not have the alternator block showing on my overview screen here. I don't know exactly why, but it really doesn't matter at the end of the day because we are using the Wakespeed in standalone mode. However, if you have in the connectivity section here, if you go to your VCAN port settings, you may have RVC selected here, and that is a newer protocol that, according to Wakespeed documentation, when you're using it with a Servo GX, you should not have it in RVC mode. You should have it on a VCAN with CAN bus BMS or a Lynx IMBMS if that is what you have, but I doubt anybody in our community is going to have a Lynx controller in there. So CAN bus BMS, VCAN and CAN bus BMS is the correct setting in here, and that's about it. I may have missed some details, so feel free to ping me up and ask me if you have any questions, but I am super stoked that this system is now working exactly as expected.